The world had already moved on. The headlines that once burned with urgency had faded into digital archives, another tragedy in the whirlwind of fame and fleeting hearts. But Suzy never moved on. It had been nearly a year since Yu Menglong's sudden death, a car accident that stunned Asia. Fans mourned. His name trended for days. Yet behind the public mourning, a silence lingered, the kind that only one person truly understood. That person was Suzy. To the world, they were just colleagues, distant stars from two different skies, Korea's, nation's first love, and China's gentle prince. They had met briefly on a collaboration project for a charity campaign, a photo shoot that captured two smiles frozen under soft light. Nothing more. Nothing official. But those who looked closely remembered the way he had looked at her. The way she laughed, slightly nervous, as if trying not to feel something she shouldn't. No one ever knew the truth, not until she opened the old box. It was sent from Beijing, with a name written on the corner in fading ink. It had sat in her agency's mail storage for months, unopened, unnoticed, until one quiet afternoon, when Suzy found herself searching for something she couldn't name. Inside the box were letters. Old-fashioned ones, folded, creased, and sealed with care. Each letter was written in Mandarin, but inside, English and Korean sentences slipped between the lines. The handwriting was soft, neat, painfully careful, like someone who was afraid of saying too much. And every envelope began with her name. To Suzy, who reminds me of spring even in winter. Her hands trembled. She didn't cry, not yet. She was too afraid to start, because if she did, she might never stop. The first letter was dated 6 months before his death. He had written it during a filming break in Shanghai, when rumors about his health were quietly circulating online. "I've been sick lately," he wrote. "But it's not the kind of sickness medicine can fix. It's something else. Something that sits between the ribs and beats too fast when I think of you." Suzy pressed her fingers against the page. The words felt alive. They felt like him. Gentle, poetic, too kind for the world he lived in. That night, Suzy stayed awake until dawn reading. Each letter carried fragments of a love that had lived in silence, unspoken, unrequited, yet pure in its quiet ache. In one letter, he described her laughter. "You laugh like someone who forgets pain for a moment. I hope you never stop." In another, he confessed his fear. "Sometimes, I think if I ever told you, I'd ruin what little we have. So I'd rather carry it, quietly, like a secret song." By the time the sun rose, her pillow was wet, not with sobs, but with that deep ache that lives somewhere between grief and gratitude, the ache of being loved by someone you never truly knew you lost. The last letter in the box was postmarked 2 days before his death. It had never been sent. The envelope was blank, sealed, and slightly torn at the corner, as if he had changed his mind at the last minute. Her heart pounded. She stared at it for a long time before opening it. Inside was a single sentence. Just one. Written shakily, as if rushed. "If tomorrow never comes, please know, you are my peace." Suzy clutched the letter to her chest. And for the first time since his funeral, she broke. The quiet sobs came in waves, soft, helpless, real. She wasn't crying for what could have been, but for everything that was left unsaid. And in that small, tear-stained room, the world that had moved on seemed to stop again, just for her and the boy who wrote her name like a prayer he never got to say out loud. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more touching K-drama stories and emotional news-style narratives. For days, Suzy carried those letters everywhere she went. She didn't tell anyone. Not her manager, not her friends, not even her mother. The world saw her smiling again on camera, glowing under the spotlight, but inside, her heart was a museum of moments she could never speak about. And then, the memories began to replay themselves, quietly, as if the letters had opened a hidden door. It started 3 years ago, a film festival in Busan. She had been invited as a presenter, and he, a guest actor for an international collaboration project. They were both rising stars then, bright, busy, too polite to be close. But that night, During the after-party, the universe played its first card. The event had spilled onto the hotel's rooftop, and while most guests drank and laughed, Menglong stood alone by the railing, looking out at the sea. He wasn't the kind to crave attention. There was something shy, almost poetic, about him, the kind of man who said little but made silence feel like a song. Suzy had gone up to escape the noise. She didn't expect to find someone else there. "Beautiful, isn't it?" she had said in English, nodding toward the ocean. Menglong turned, startled at first, then smiled. That soft, patient smile that made people forget their own name. "Yes," he said, "but it looks sad tonight." They talked about the sea, about music, about how fame sometimes felt like drowning in applause you didn't ask for. It wasn't flirty. It wasn't planned. It was something else, quiet, natural, strangely comforting. When the night ended, they didn't exchange numbers. But he sent her a photo later through a staff contact, the view of the ocean from that rooftop with a short message. "So, you don't forget how the sea looked when we met." From there, it began, slowly, softly, like the way rain begins to fall before a storm. They met again months later in Seoul for a promotional shoot. The cameras loved them together. Fans joked that they looked like the perfect K-drama couple, two gentle souls, one gaze away from a love confession. Behind the scenes, their friendship deepened. He brought her coffee in between takes. She teased him for his accent when he tried to speak Korean. He wrote her name in Mandarin on a napkin once, explaining that it meant grace, and she laughed, not realizing he meant it literally. "You're different," she told him once. "How so?" he asked. "You don't chase the moment. You let it breathe." He had smiled quietly. "Maybe because I'm afraid if I chase it, it'll disappear." That night, Suzy went home and couldn't sleep. She told herself it was nothing, just a friendship, just an understanding between two tired people trying to stay human in a world made of lights. But deep down, she knew there was something fragile between them, not the kind of love that burned, but the kind that stayed hidden under the skin. They started exchanging letters through assistants and private couriers, tiny notes hidden in gifts or books. Sometimes it was a quote from a film, sometimes a doodle, sometimes just a single line. "You look tired today. Please rest. The weather's getting cold. Don't forget your scarf." Your laugh stays in my head longer than any song. Nothing romantic. Yet everything about it was love. Then, in early spring, Menglong's messages slowed down. He missed a few rehearsals. He apologized for being under the weather. The industry rumors whispered that he was struggling with exhaustion, but Suzy sensed it was more. When she finally saw him again at an award event in Taipei, she almost didn't recognize him. He looked pale, his smile thinner. Yet his eyes, those kind, patient eyes, still found hers in the crowd. After the show, he handed her a small envelope. Inside was a pressed cherry blossom, and beneath it, written faintly in ink, "Spring is short. Promise me you'll see it twice. Once for you, once for me." It was the last time she saw him alive. Suzy kept that blossom between her journals, unaware that somewhere in Beijing, he was writing the letters she would one day find, the ones he never had the courage to send. That spring, the world kept spinning. He filmed quietly, traveled, smiled for cameras, gave interviews, all while his body fought against him. And Suzy, far away, continued her life, smiling in commercials, singing on stage, unknowingly living inside the memory of someone who wrote her into eternity. When news of his death came, she had been on set. The director said she turned pale, then walked off without a word. She didn't cry in front of anyone, not that day. Her tears came later, in private, when she saw the last photo of him smiling at an event. In the caption, he had written in Mandarin, "The sun still rises. I hope you're smiling somewhere too." Now, years later, as she sat on her bed surrounded by his letters, the memories didn't hurt as much as they used to. They simply lived, like old songs that still hum softly when the world goes quiet. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more touching K-drama stories and emotional news-style narratives.